Login accepted.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the tech capital of the world. It is live coding Friday, Kevin. We're going to write some code today. What do you think?
I know, yeah. New day, new content, same time.
Yeah, so we're going to build something I think is cool. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah.
You know, it's
yeah. If you joined us before, we did vibe coding. Yeah. Well, we did the vibe coding attempt, right? Like last week, we did this thing. We spent an hour like vibe coding something. We're like, it's actually a cool app idea. Let's build it. You was like,
build it for real.
Like, let's build it. And Bobby's like, cool. We'll just build it on Fridays. I'm like, cool. So this is going to be the first session. We're gonna add on to this, right? This is going to be the first of a few of these we're going to do. So we're going to come back a few Fridays in a row and just keep building this same application out and adding new features and stuff. And that's where we're going to want you guys' help too. If you have, as we go through this, if you have ideas for features, put them in chat and let us know because we may add them.
Let us know. Yeah.
We've got some ideas, but you guys have probably got some too. So we want to hear other people's ideas
remember,
too.
if you've ever been in a project meeting and you say, hey, I have an idea, and everyone looks at you like, no, that's not a good idea. We're not doing that. So that could happen here. But
that might happen
put them in
too.
there anyway. Put them in there anyway.
Yeah, don't be shy. Even if you think it's weird, like maybe it'll spur another idea too, and we'll be like, oh, that's actually really good, and like that, you know. So yeah, if you got feature ideas as we go through this today, throw them in chat. Don't be shy. And I'll
cool thing, we have named this app too. We gave it a really cool name, and Kevin made a really cool logo for it. So we'll show.
Yeah, it's cool. We kind of branded it. That's something we stick to a lot of times, isn't it? Whenever we build apps and put stuff online somewhere, we always kind of brand it. Not say like go to Foundry all over it. Like we put a little brand on it, and like that's kind of cool. So yeah, do you want to talk about the idea then first?
Yeah, so we can talk about the idea. Let me just show you the wireframe. What do you think?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah. Go on.
All right. So I've got some stuff here that I put together, and this is the wireframe. And so when I'm building an app, pretty much, Kevin, I always talk about like, what is the UI? What am I trying to build? And that actually flushes out some of the ideas. So this could be something like this. I'm using Balsamic here, but it could be a whiteboard. It could be a notepad and paper. I do have got one of these little things here I draw on all the time. You know, that's harder to show on the screen. So like, but like, you know, sometimes you doodle ideas out, and that kind of helps you solidify your ideas before you even start. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a poster over here, and this poster is going to be covered up with 12 squares, and then 12 squares obscure the poster. Okay, so you can't see what it is. And when it starts up, we want one random square to be revealed. And then you can enter a guess right here. Okay. And then if you get it wrong, it reveals another square. And then of the 12 squares, you have 5 guesses. And then you just get it wrong. And then we're going to have some hints here based on the movie. And it tells you more and more about the movie as you go. Maybe the director, who starred in it, that kind of stuff. And then it keeps track of your guesses here as well. So like you'll have a little tab interface here. So as you guess here, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to build this all with the IMDb API. So we get a real movie poster from a random movie poster from IMDb.
I guess TMDb, right? Not IMDb.
Or TMDb. Yeah, excuse me, TMDB, the movie database. Yeah. And then here, when we type in the name here, it's actually going to do a search to find actual movie names. So like you can type it in, and that way when it does see did you win or not, you always get the right
this is something
name.
that you know from experience. Like you know that that's a problem you have to solve in advance, because if it's me and I come here and I type Raiders of the Lost Ark and I spell it wrong, it's not going to tell me it's right? So you got to have this like predictive feature that shows you a list of movies so you can choose the right one, right?
Yeah, and it's actually Indiana Jones : Raiders of the Lost Ark. So like, that would
Okay.
be where
Yeah.
there's a comparison to do it.
Yeah.
So you have to get the right title for it to compare. We're not going to do a fuzzy logic title. So someone can't just type in Raiders. Oh, that's easy. That's Raiders. Like
Right,
that's
you've got to get the right movie. Yeah.
you got to get the right title, because there's a lot of things called Raiders in movie titles. So
Right.
got to be the exact title match for you to get it right. And so we'll help you do that by giving you a type ahead to bring the movies back, the titles back here.
And that also comes back from, does that come back real time from the API?
Yeah.
Okay.
As you type.
That's
so
cool.
it'll be a type ahead control. So like, we'll have a little bit of complexity in this. Like we'll build a type ahead control, and that's a timer that calls the API over multiple times based on the letters as you type.
Oh,
and then we'll do something called debouncing. So like, it doesn't do it every single letter. It does it every 300 milliseconds or something like that, 50 milliseconds. So that,
how does that work with like, just out of interest, how does that work with API calls when you do that? Is that a new call every time?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's doing a new call every time. But we want to use something we call a debounce, which means just give them a little time to type in a couple of things and then show the results in real time as they're coming back. So we'll build that custom. That's a little bit of complexity here to do that. Actually, probably, as you saw in our vibe coding, putting squares on top of this poster and blurring them in real and one at a time. Okay. There's going to be some CSS involved with that. Just I'm imagining what we got to do here, so I think I know kind of the approach here. But that's not it's not a junior level thing.
I would also guess here so I see it like visually. I also guess there's probably more than one way to do that, right? And you have to kind of like pick one. And I'm guessing if different people made this app, their solution for doing that would probably be different. Everybody's might be different, maybe. That's interesting.
And so,
you're going to kind of trial and error some attempts. Then you kind of think you know what you want to do, but I imagine this is one of those things where you're going to have to. Yeah, sure.
Probably run into some stuff, and that should tell you too. The other thing I'm going to do, and I have the advantage here of that most people don't, is if I do get stuck, I got friends, so we may phone a friend, one of the Codifying instructors here, may come in and help us if I need them, and they can make fun of me, but that's okay. If I make a typo that I can't see or something I don't understand, I do phone a friend sometimes, which is good. So we're going to be using Visual Studio. We're going to build this in Blazor. Here at Codefoundry, we teach .NET, so we're going to use .NET to build it. So if you don't know anything about Blazor, it's kind of positioned in the marketplace like React and Angular, and Blazor rides alongside of those. Are both front end and back end frameworks, allow us to build web applications.
So I have a question then. Why we're building it in Blazor? Yep. Why are we using C#? We're putting a back end for this?
Yes. So we're going to have a back end. So like we are going to call the API on server side so that our key isn't exposed. So normally when you're on YouTube and people are building apps, and I'm not calling any particular person out, so like don't get offended if you think I'm calling you out, but like typically the apps are like demonstration apps, and they're typically built in a way that makes it easier to do. And you don't worry about the implementation details. Like, well, if I was doing this for real, I'd do it a different way, but just for YouTube, let's just crank this out. We're going to build this as if this was a real app. So we're going to build a API backend to proxy our calls to API, to TMDb API, so that our key isn't revealed to the user. So if we were paying for this key, we wouldn't want that to be exposed on the front end. So all of our calls to the API will be handled on the server, therefore the user can't see them. And then we'll write an API that our client communicates through. And so that allows us to hide that key. Now, if we add a database to this, it's already set up to add databases to it.
Right. So
that if we need to keep settings in the database, or we got some other features planned, maybe we're not going to talk about quite yet. But if we want to do that, we would probably need a database backend for that. So it'll already be set up to have a server-side backend.
Okay.
And this is what makes apps hard, is when you start building client-side and server-side, mixing them together. And this is, in my opinion, where Blazor and .NET really shines. It really does have a complete framework, whereas you got to piece together other parts with the other frameworks.
Right. So. Okay. What were the settings things, by the way? I don't think we'll talk about settings.
Yeah. So we're going to allow you to enter in a year start and a year end. So you could put in like 1980 to 1990. And
Okay,
then
to make it really difficult.
Yeah, or if you're like, man, I'm a horror buff. I like 70 era horror, like, and you could put in, 60 to 70s or something like that, or 70 to 80. And then you could put that in there, and then you can be able to pick a genre. We'll get all these genres from the API as well. So there'll be genres that are in movies in there. So you can't pick a genre that doesn't exist in TMDb API.
Okay.
And then we'll also restrict this to a starting of a decade. So this will say like 1960, and then you pick your year in will be 70.
Okay. It's going to give you a 10-year span.
Yeah, we're doing 10-year spans because, believe it or not, if you filter by genre and you go a 10-year span or a 1-year span, you may not get enough movies to fulfill the randomness. Right.
You choose 1920s action movies. There's probably 3 of them.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. If any. So
if
like,
any,
so like, so that's what we're going to do. Make sure that we get results set back. There's also some complexity in this, which I know because I've made Movie Pro and all this kind of stuff we do in the course, that the data is not always what you would think. You think it's unlimited, but it's really not. So we're going to limit this to US only movies. So we're going to do that. So we have here in the US, we have a chance of guessing it. So if you're watching this from overseas, you're in India and you want to know about Bollywood, you'd have to adjust the call a little bit for this.
You'll show us how to do that. You'll show us where that filters.
Yeah, we'll show you how all those filters work out. Okay. And so, and the same thing if you're in China or Korea or whatever, they have their own movie industry, so that you would see different movies coming back.
That's imagine how difficult this would be for us, with Chinese only. We'd never get it.
So I'd never get it.
The impossible movie poster quiz.
Yeah. Hidden Tiger, Crouching Dragon. I would have got that.
That's it. That's it. That's all we've got.
That's all I got. If it's India, Triple R, I think came out on Netflix last year.
Okay.
So I watched that. So
it was that Tiger movie. I don't know if that was an Indian movie actually, but I remember that. I wouldn't know the name until I saw it.
So don't get mad at us that we're US based. We're just going to bias it because that's what we know. So it'd make it fun for us when we're trying to guess it.
But that could be another feature you could add too, right? You could add a country feature if you really wanted to. That'd be quite interesting. Yeah.
To adjust the country and stuff.
Maybe that's something for the future. Again, if anybody in chat, if you're seeing this and you're like, oh, this would be a good feature, throw it in chat because we're interested to see what other features you might add to this as well. And again, as we're going along, do that as well. Have any
so that's what we're going to build.
And we're going to build this over a number of weeks. We're going to do probably a couple of hours today, and then we'll be back in next Friday, and we'll think about another feature to add, and we'll get as far as we can today in the couple of hours we've got.
Yeah, see what we can do. And then this will slide in and out. So this will be a hidden slider. So this will slide in and out.
Yep.
A lot of JavaScript looking like JavaScript. We're going to show you how WebAssembly handles that. It's pretty slick. So I'm going to attempt, I don't think I'm going to write any JavaScript to do this at all. So it's going to be CSS, HTML, C#. That's it. No JavaScript. And we'll get a very kind of robust front end that looks really cool at the end of the day.
Nice.
Now, I will say this. One other thing before we get started is normally, if you take our course, I'm teaching you every single thing we're going to go here. I'm going to move a little quicker than we'll never get done. If you taught this would take, I would say 15 hours to instruct, maybe longer.
Okay.
So this is going to be kind of lengthy as far as the project type is. I know Movie Pro, we just recorded that.
Yeah.
Similar in this regard, it shows movies and stuff like that. It was, I don't know how many videos, it was a lot.
50
so if you
something.
want to build that, 50 something.
58, I think.
So, and we're going through each and everything about how to do it, why are we doing it? And that's built also in Blazor and WebAssembly. So of course it'll be coming out soon, so you can kind of check that out. So if you like what you see here, come to our course, learn how to build Blazor, and hopefully you'll like what Blazor does. It's pretty slick. One thing that we'll talk about is Razor syntax, which is how we build the front ends and how we adjust the front ends. We manipulate the front ends with the Razor syntax. And if you're coming in from React, you'll see where React uses a lot of expressions. This is using C# code to do it. I think it's a little bit more readable. It's better. But if you want to know, how does this do that, and you're React centric, you can say, oh, I can see what they're doing there. I could do that in React. And hopefully both of those things could, you can probably learn how to build this in another language just by watching me build it in Blazor. And then you have the back end, which is remarkably simple to do. And I think once we get to that part, we'll see how robust the back end is, which is really where Blazor shines, is on the server side.
Cool.
So we'll talk about render modes, man. WebAssembly, and then there's a unique render mode inside of Blazor that's unique only to Blazor, is called Interactive Server, which all of your stuff runs on the server, but it creates a connection through WebSockets to the client, and it updates the DOM like it would with JavaScript. And so it's the only one that's like that. So it's kind of cool. So we'll be messing with render modes as well. And I'll try to go over those and ask as many questions as you want. And I'll try to answer them as we go. But I'm going to be focused on coding this up so we can actually get a result.
Lots to cover. Cool. I'll jump in with questions as we have any. I'll throw them up, or if I have some, I'll ask them.
All right. So we're going to get started then. Are we ready to go now?
Go for it.
All right. All right, cool. So let me see here. I don't know why. All right. So I'm going to start a project here. This is Visual Studio 2022. I'm just going to create a brand new project here. And I'm going to pick a template. And there's several templates in here, but we're going to pick the Blazor web app template. And this is just allows us to have server side and client side interactivity. That's kind of what it's for. And there's a lot of other templates we won't go into, but this is one we're going to pick. And we have named this thing, and we're going to call it Obscura. And I'm just going to give it live now, because when I will push this to GitHub so that you can know which one it is. So, all right, I missed my code there.
It disappeared.
Yeah, it did. Went to the other screen. Got too many screens, Kevin. So let's try that again. New project. All right, Blazor web app. Next. Obscura live. And right here, we're going to place this in the same directory. If you're doing this at home, you know, that's what we do for publishing purposes. And so we know that Railway looks for everything in the root. So we're just going to do that. And then we're going to pick .NET 9. It doesn't matter which one we pick here. In our Blazor course coming up, we built it in .NET 8 because we started last year. There's very little differences from Blazor's perspective between 8 and 9, if anything. There's very minor things for that. That's relevant to coding. There's a lot of improvements, but it doesn't matter either way. Which one as far as the code wise is the same. I'll just pick 9. For now, I'm going to leave this authentication type off. That means that we don't worry about login at this point. So we're going to leave that off. And then we're going to pick auto. So this will be server and WebAssembly and interactivity per page per component, which means that we can independently for each page determine the render mode. That's our max creativity here. And then finally here, the sample pages, I don't care about those. Don't hit create. And this will go through and create a project for us. Now run it and I'll show you kind of where it starts. Then we're going to start modifying it heavily.
Nightly Dev wanted to know, by the way, if we've used Rider in your videos or tutorials. JetBrains makes some amazing IDEs, and Rider was really helpful editor when I was using C#.
We're not using Rider, but like we're using Visual Studio, but like we have used Rider.
It before, right? But,
yeah. It just became free. So it's a little bit better now. So from our students' perspective, it's like we need a free one so that students don't have to buy $499 for Rider or whatever.
Right.
And Visual Studio is more widely used than Rider for this, so we try to use the most widely used thing. But I will say this, it is cool. Like we have used it. It's pretty neat. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to see, before we get started, I'm going to see which drive this went to. I didn't pay attention to that. So I'm going to open this up. I may move it. Let me see where it's at. Yeah, I'm going to move this project. Give me 1 second. I'm going to close this down. Full disclosure, I have 2 drives. One is the G-RAID. Kevin knows the G-RAID.
Yeah.
And that
just fixed
thing,
my G-RAID.
yeah, it's
It's good
always
for
spinning up and
volume.
down.
It's good for volume.
Yeah,
It's not good for speed.
Yeah, it spins up and down all the time. So I'm going to move it and then we'll open it back up.
Yeah, these days it's just better to have an SSD, isn't it? They're just so much quicker.
Yeah, I just have an SSD. So.
And like the little enclosures
And also,
have
I'm on
the
a
M2s, so fast.
Yeah, and I'm on a Mac running. Let's see, I'm doing two things at once, talking and typing, but I'm running a Mac with Parallels. So.
Okay, so you're running Windows through a virtual machine on your Mac.
Yeah. Okay, what happened here? All right, let's just start over again. I'm gonna start it again. I lost my solution file when I copied it, so just instead of just troubleshooting it, let's just do this right. Get started. All right. One more time. So, create a new project. I'm not gonna go through it. Blazor web app. Next. Make sure that source code select. And we're going to call this Obscura Live. Now, Obscura is our name for this. We think it's cool. Obscura. You know? And we're obscuring movie posters. You can see how much faster it is when it'll recreate on SSD.
Yeah,
too, so.
it's so much.
So like that's that thing. So like my compile times will be faster, and then the other thing is like it'll spin down during a debug session. And
I would say if you're a developer, it's like one of the cheapest like upgrades you can do. If you're on a machine that has an SSD already in it, great, do it on the SSD. If you start like you have a lot of like stuff and you start editing it on an external drive, a spin up external drive like a just like a regular enclosure, G-RAID or something, or a RAID or whatever it is so much slower. The best thing you can do, spend $100 and buy like an SSD enclosure. That's so much better.
Yeah, just push it to a USB-C port, and then you should be good to go.
Yeah.
All right, so basically we have a couple things here. We're going to switch this. We run this project from the server side, so you can see right here inside of Blazor, I have a server project, and then I have a client project, and this is how it names it, the name of it, and it has .client here, so that's what we know. This will run either in WebAssembly or interactive server. This is where our pages live, and this is where eventually we're going to call all of our code. So I'll show you what a startup page looks like, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to modify it and make it look better.
Cool. So
I'm not going to go through
straight out of the box.
Straight out of the box, you know.
Yeah, not only does M2 SSD performance is insane these days if you have a good motherboard. It is. I just put a new SanDisk 4 terabyte M2 external SSD in mine. It's the newest one, and it's so much quicker. It's insane how quick it is.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the read-write speeds are, but it's really fast. It's faster than my other older M2 SSD. The technology just keeps getting better and better and better.
Okay, so we have this blank project, hello world. Because we didn't use sample pages, it didn't bring in the menu system, so which is fine. We're going to build it out.
Okay,
so that's kind of what it looks like, just a brand new page here. And so inside the server project, there's this layout here, components layout, and this is kind of where everything lives. And so if you know anything about it, this is the base level layout component that everything gets injected to. So when we create a page, this app body tag takes that page component and it'll inject it here. What we want to do, and this is just HTML that's in here, is create a layout that kind of fills the page with a footer. So I think that's kind of what we want to do here. And so we're going to make a top-down footer, the sticky footer at the bottom. We're not going to have a menu system here, which is okay.
Because our app doesn't really need one, does it? It's kind of a single page thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This makes it.
So inside these layout components, you can just write regular HTML. Now, before I do this, I am going to also check one other thing before we get in here. This app Razor here is got the entry point to your app. So this is like the head tag. So this is a SPA framework. So everything runs out of one page essentially. And I've got some stuff that I want to be able to do here to pull this in. I'm going to change this out. This is new. This is new to .NET 9. I haven't really noticed that before. Okay, that's weird. All right, let's see how it's doing it. Okay, we'll just change it up. I'll do it the old way. I'm used to it.
Okay.
Because it looks more like regular HTML than this kind of thing right here. So up here, I'm going to create a folder here in www root, and the www root is where all static files could be. So I'm going to start doing some organization here, CSS, and then I'm also going to create a folder for images. We're going to be bringing in some images for our app, our logos and stuff like that. And that's about it. And then I'm going to move this in here. So now that my CSS is in here. So if I look in here, this is the base level CSS that a Blazor project has. Some of it I'm going to keep. Specifically, I need these right here. This is the error condition that can happen, and it shows it in a certain way. But I'm going to keep everything in here. If I want to change it, I'll come back and change it. I may add to this too if I want to. So it's just a CSS file. And then I'm going to drop in something that's unique to us. And we have built out a theme CSS that allows us to kind of manipulate Bootstrap themes, but it's just basically just a set of colors that we use. And we have like a bunch of color themes, right? And so the one that we like is Code Magic. So this is our Code Magic theme. But we have a blue, we have a pink, we have a purple, we have all kinds of colors. So when you're in here at the school, we give you this theme so that you can make your stuff look kind of different from everyone else, at least starting out with a color palette. Because we know, Kevin, picking a color palette isn't for everybody.
It's definitely not for everybody. Purple and gold works for the Lakers, not for anybody else.
Yeah. No. Purple and gold looks good on a Laker uniform. Terrible on a website.
That's it. Farhan wants to know, by the way, is Blazor free?
Yeah. I mean, the Visual Studio community is free. You can go get it, download it, and Blazor's free. So there's no charge for that. It's just a framework like React that's put out by Microsoft. So it's just a framework. So you can get Community Edition Visual Studio for nothing. And then you have everything that you see that I'm running here. I have Community Edition right now.
Yeah, there's nothing we're using here that's paid, in anything that we're building here.
Yeah. The only thing that you're going to start paying is when you go to publishing, which is true for anything that you want to publish.
Yeah.
There used to be free publishing, but in the last 2 years, that has gone.
I think it was costing way too much money.
Yeah, for people. So looking at you, Bitcoin miners, you ruined it for everybody. All right, so I'm going to go back to my main layout page here, and I'm going to change this href here. So this is a style sheet, and I moved it. All right, and so just to let you know, I don't have to use. It is just HTML, so I can just hit CSS/, and then it'll find it here. I'm going to hit apps. And then I'm going to add my theme CSS in here too as well. So this is straight from the beginning how I would start a project. This is kind of what I would do. One other thing that I'll look at doing too is this right here. I'll leave this alone here. This is the compiled style sheet from any of my components. So I'm assuming it's going to drop it right here in this folder here when it compiles it. But we'll see if we have any problems with that. We'll go look at it, but it shouldn't. I think this is just the .NET 9 way of doing it. And I'm used to seeing it like this. So, but I'm going to leave it alone for now. We'll just see. We'll check it out. I'm sure it works. All right, it's just new. All right, so the other thing I want to do is drop in some fonts. So we're going to use Montserrat. So I got that from Google, and I'm going to drop these in here. And so these are just something I use quite a bit, some fonts in here. So nothing major here. We're using this font everywhere. And this is from Google Fonts. Again, it's free. You can just go grab them. So don't really need to do that. And then the other thing here is I do have a favicon that I want to drop in here. Drop that in here. And this is just, if you look at it, this is for us. Just a little Blazor favicon. We could also put a the Coder Foundry one too if we wanted to, but we'll just do.
It's just what appears in the tab on your browser, right?
Yeah, and if you don't put it in there, it won't show up. So
right,
and it shows a blank square. So, but you need to address it here. So, and if I may come back next week, and I just don't have it in front of me. Just we have a Coder Foundry favicon we use, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, we'll see if that's a feature we want to add or change, or something we want to change when we go forward.
You know, I know this is kind of boring in the beginning, but this just shows you like what you have to do to set stuff up. It's not magic, you know. There's no.
No, I think going through your process is important to see like this is how you would actually like build out an app.
Yeah, so it's something like this. Now the one thing too is that when he gives us this tilde mark, it's just a problem with the editor. Just don't take that in there; it won't work. I just know. So like basically this right here is saying that it's at the root of this folder right here. And so this is where Blazor and .NET, when it's running, it'll look in this folder, and this is the path to that. Okay. This will work as well. You're seeing it's the slash path. So, and then it'll look in that CSS images folder. Okay. That's kind of what we're going to set up here. The other thing we're going to add in is I'm going to add in Bootstrap. I'm going to use some Bootstrap and a lot of like custom CSS, but I just start off with Bootstrap and adding it in. So that's pretty easy. And I'm just going to add all of these in here. There's a couple things that we use quite a bit. I'll go through them in a second here. I have the link to Bootstrap here. This is 5.3. That's the newer one. And then we use their icons. So we're going to bring those in. And then sometimes we use dev icons. A lot of times we're doing that where we want developer icons. If you haven't seen it, you can go to just type in dev icons, and it's got icons for development brands like React or Git or Blazor or .NET C#. So there's icons in here that aren't in these Bootstrap icons or favicons.
And you just grab these from the website, right? These CDNs.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you use CDNs over actually including it in the project? What's your thinking behind that?
If you're worried about your Lighthouse score, you can stick it on there. But it's just easier to do.
Right.
So, but I'll bring this over here. This is Bootstrap. And you could do the same thing. I like Bootstrap. It doesn't mean that I hate Tailwind. It just means that that's what I know right now. And that's kind of what I'm really comfortable with. You could build it either way. I'm actually going to use mostly CSS to build this anyway. But they have this icon library, and that's what I'm bringing in, all these icons. They're kind of cool.
Okay.
There's a lot of them. If you scroll down there, we'll use quite a bit. We use several of them.
That is a lot.
So I just bring them in. Yeah, it's a lot. It's thousands. And then, Bootstrap will use kind of their Flexbox utilities mostly. We'll use their grid some, and we'll use maybe a few components, but not exhaustively. But if you want to look at the docs here, they've got great docs, fantastic docs about what they're doing. So, all right. So that's kind of what we'll do here. I may come over here if I don't know how to do something exactly from memory. I come over here. I keep these up. So I can go click on, it's like, what is the color called again?
Right.
I'll look through the colors.
You mean you don't remember all the color names?
I try to, but like it's better to go look it up than try to like type
100%.
it and run 3 tries.
And make 10 mistakes just trying to remember it. Yeah, it's pointless remembering it.
Yeah. So, memory ain't what it used to be either. So like, that's
well, it doesn't have to be. That's what I like.
That's right. Yeah. So, all right, so I've got that kind of base set up, pretty much set up here. I think we're good. We got the Blazor framework right here. This is the JS that makes all this magic happen. So if you're in a Blazor project, this has to be referenced here. I will say that I do want to grab in one more thing. I will use this, which is the Blazor, or not the Blazor, but the Bootstrap JS. I'm going to drop this in here. Boom. Just like that. And then if I want to alter the layout here, I've got some scripts. And I'm just going to go through my whole thing, what we do.
Yeah, do it.
This is for us. This is Coder Foundry specific, nothing to do with Blazor. This is so I can dynamically change those themes, and I can put it on the body tag here and change it from blue to pink to whatever.
Okay.
If I want to. So I would just sit there.
This is just for coloring, right? This is just for the different.
Yeah, just for
colors.
coloring. If I wanted to do blue or whatever. But if I don't put anything on there, it'll default to Magic, Code Magic, which is the one I'm going to use. Okay. All right, so that means that you'll see me do this when we get into coding. You'll see me writing code with like these variables, and I'm getting them from this theme right here. So you'll see me say CF core CF theme 100, and so you'll see me write this as a bar.
And this is just written in standard CSS. This is you've just
and it's just looking up
this.
these colors. So this CF code Magic 900 is this color right here, this HSL value.
Right. Yep.
So it's kind of a turquoise with a yellow accent. So it kind of works pretty good. All right, so that's all there. That's all the setup here. So let's go to our main layout now. Let's get back to laying this out, because that's the main thing we need to do to get this going here. So I'm going to write a div tag, and we're going to use Bootstrap for this. I could use this in CSS, but it's just more concise right here, and it's very small. So this will turn this into a flex box, this div. And we're going to say column, which means that I want them stacked on top of each other. And I want it to take up all available space, 100%. And I'm going to put some comments in here. Top nav bar, we're not going to make a nav, but if I dropped it in here, this is where I'd put it. So to make a top nav bar. And then we're going to make a main content area. And this is a skeleton, just a skeleton kind of template here. Every app has a skeleton template, so whatever it is. And so all of our pages will fit inside this template. So in here, in this main content area, I'm gonna make a main tag. It's just a semantic tag that says, hey, this is the main area. And in this one, I'm just gonna make a flex box or flex grow this. And it'll make it wide, it'll make it taller, wide, and I'll put a little padding. So, and I just something I do all the time. All right, I'm going to change this to main tag, not main layout. So that's the type. All right, so notice that's just HTML, and then I'm going to take our body tag, and this is specific to Blazor, where it's going to drop anything that it finds inside of here at this point. All right, and then we're going to make a footer area and drop our content in footer. And I'll show you how to make a component real quick. So our footer will go in here. I'll put it under the comment. All right, so this is our footer area, and this will shrink. And so what shrink means, it'll shrink to the content size, but not lower. So that is our sticky footer template with Bootstrap. You could do it with Flexbox and CSS if you want to. We did Bootstrap because it's easy. So what I'm going to do is come over here to this layout here, and I've got this main layout, and then I'm going to add a new component here. Erase your component. And the one thing you'll notice real quick about Blazor, everything is a component. I call it a component first framework.
So how would you best describe a component?
A component is a set of HTML elements and code that's encapsulated to itself, and then it can be put on any page.
Okay.
So it's not a complete page, it's a partial, but it's complete HTML here. So I am going to copy some HTML from my snippets over here so that you don't have to see me type all this in, because this doesn't matter really. As you can see here in this component, it's just HTML. I've got some styling in here, and I'm going to add a style sheet to this component. It's called an isolated style sheet. But you can see here, this is just HTML at this point. I've got some links here, like the YouTube channel here, the Twitter, GitHub.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this before we jumped on here, didn't we? That if I was building this app and it wasn't for Coder Foundry, I wouldn't even put a footer on it.
Yeah,
this is just for us. If you want to put a footer on it, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, we're gonna put.
When
a
you did the
footer on it.
wireframing, I was just like, oh, it looks good as just a full page.
Yeah, I'm also gonna drop in some images here that I have, so we just don't have to like go through that effort. I'm gonna just drop these in here right now. Hold on a second. Let me get this open here. There's a bunch of them. All right, so now I have the Coder Foundry logo. I've got some landing pages, and then I've got our cool logo here. You know, we'll reveal that in a second. And then I've got some posters that we'll use in the app, and then we're using the TMDb logo down here, so that we have to use that. You're supposed to anyway. So it's just images in there that's stacked in there. So nothing major. All right. I don't think it's worthwhile. Like, how did I make these in Photoshop? You know, or
Right.
how did you make this in Photoshop? No, that doesn't matter. We did Photoshop it up though, so it looks good. All right. So this, since I did that images folder, then my footer code will work here. So now you can see where I'm referencing the Coder Foundry logo right here, and this will be at the bottom. And then I have this TMDb logo square, and that's also in here. Right here, I have the long one and the square one in here. I tried them both, and that's it. And then you can see here this BI stuff. This is that Bootstrap icons right here. So we got all the icons in here. So that's kind of all it is to it. And then we're using some row columns. You know, you don't have to understand this code at this point, but like this is just basically Bootstrap grids and columns that they have put together. But it's all based around in and around Flexbox. All right, so this is my footer component, and then I can add this back to my layout. So, all right, so I can go back to my main layout over here, and now inside of here, it looks like an HTML tag. It's kind of cool. So now this is a component right here, and you can see it knows what it is, where it's at, and it'll insert it right there. I do want to add a style to this. I'm going to add a new style to this. New existing item or new item. And this is how you add style sheets that are bound to a component. It's called an isolated style sheet. And you name them after your component. So if, in this case, it's footer.razor.css. Boom. All right, so now I have a style sheet that is bound to this. And so what it does is it will add like attributes to each style in here that are unique, so that the styles in here won't stomp on any other styles in the app. And that's kind of why you do it. You don't have to manage all your styles in one page, and you don't have to worry about collisions. So it's pretty slick the way that works. Just built in, ready to go. So I've got some styles in here that I'm going to, in my base footer component here. Now, the other thing too about isolated styles, and I won't talk about it much, but any style that you put in here that also isn't in this component will not work. So for example, I could put the body tag in here, and I could do whatever I want in this tag, and it won't impact the body element on the page, because this is an isolated component. So it only will impact what's here in this component, and whatever you name this, someone else could use the same name. So for example, here I'm using this BI class. If I use this BI class in another component, they can be styled independently.
Okay.
If you want this BI class to be universal, then you would come up and put it somewhere up in here in this app CSS that's universal. So this is like our global styles, and these are our component styles. So, all right. So that's about it. So we could probably run this now, and maybe we have a footer. We'll see if I didn't forget something. And you do have to run it because it is being compiled. All right. So we do have something here. I'm going to make sure this is refreshed here. It's not working. Okay.
There,
looks like our theme CS didn't come through.
Yeah.
No themes. All right. So we'll look at what we got here. So this worked, but this did not. And then let's go here, and let's go at Razor. And we thought this worked, but maybe not. Unless this is required now. Let's see. I didn't think that was required.
Let's try.
If it is, I'll be frustrated. I don't like that. I think you can use it as a helper if you want to, but it shouldn't be required. But maybe that's how it's looking it up these days.
The one down there, by the way, does have quotes around it. The Obscura Live one. Took the quotes out.
Sure enough, done it. Okay. Yeah, because it makes sense as a string. Yeah. May already have to phone a friend and see what the guys think. I've been messing with .NET now more than I have because I've been busy making the course. But like, I think it should work.
Let's see.
If not, I'll go check the tools and we'll see if it's in there. You know?
Yeah. I like stuff when it breaks.
I don't. I like it when it works.
I like it when it ultimately works. But
yeah, so this should work. It should just.
Well, we can see it's there,
Could be
right?
the
Because we
slash.
can see the logo there. So we see that the problem isn't it that the content is. It's the styling.
Yeah, so it's, themes isn't in there. This one is. So it didn't load themes in here. But it loaded that. All right. Which means it's not loading Bootstrap either. Well, try one more time. All right. Not a may I already have to call a friend and see what I did wrong here. This is stupid. I shouldn't. I don't know. Should have just did it in 8 because this is stuff that just works.
Yep.
Okay. Crazy. Lord. Inspect.
No, it's not a caching issue to you. He actually, I saw you refresh the.
Yeah, it's not a caching issue. It's just like not loading them in here, man. What in the world? Come on.
Is it loading the?
Just
Can
load-
you see if it's loading the Obscura one? That
This is for components, so that should be in there. I can look in this style sheet, and you can see it's got the footer styles in here that we have. But I think what it is Bootstrap's not, and my theme isn't in here because that's why there's no colors.
right?
So, but you can see here that it's got these styles here for the footer. There's no color here because it doesn't know what that is. What I imagine.
Jacob says, I think
look
you
down
can't
here.
have the leading slash in the assets. In the assets.
Oh yeah, so I figured I was gonna try that next, but you know, whatever. All right, so it just doesn't know what folder it's in, but it found the app. But we'll see.
Give that a shot.
All right, and then this should work. I'm assuming Bootstrap's getting loaded in because that's just a standard up link statements. I know that.
Is there a way we can actually check that Bootstrap's getting loaded in too? Like, can we
We'll
see
see in
that
a second.
when we inspect the page?
When I looked in there, it looked like it was seeing the style. So
Okay. He also says there's a typo. Or themes.css with an S.
Oh, well, that would be probably the main problem.
Isn't 90? I swear I've watched enough of you guys code stuff. 99% of the time, it's like it's a typo. 99%. It's never a technical issue. It's never a technical issue. We always run down these technical there we go. Paths, and it's like, oh, you just typoed something. And the funny, we tell students this all the time too, because it happens all the time, right? Students, it's always a typo. It's like first thing to check is like check typos.
Yeah. So main layout, Flex Grow PO1, H100.
There we go. Showed up now.
Oh, I know what I need to do here. I need to modify this too. There are some other things I got to do in the app CSS. So, I need a root tag in here, and I'm going to bring in some fonts that I'm going to use.
Is this for the theme to work?
It will eventually. Yeah, I need it. So, like, I have like the title color, font size, color, and then to make the template work, I've got to add in some other stuff here. And we'll when we get to the background page, we'll add that in a second. But this right here is the magic that makes it stretch down. You have to make sure the HTML on the body is 100% high. And then we're going ahead and setting up what our font weights and sizes are and what the fonts are. So I neglected to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and style up H1s and H2s for me. Boom. All right, so that just means I'll have a title when I create a title with the H1 tag, it'll be styled the way I want.
Okay.
No matter how I type it in, it'll always be uppercase, always font weight 100, and it uses this variable font here. And then this variable font is set up here in this root. So that normally what I have is I didn't start with a template. We have a Coder Foundry template we come in, and we would just come in, it would all be set up, and we would just change this font depending on the app we're building.
Right.
And then boom, it just works, you know. So like for the most part. Okay, so I think that's the main thing there. So okay, we'll adjust the other ones if we need to. I think it works. There we go. All right. So now we have a template down here. And we can all laugh. It's that easy. So now notice here, one things we do, we go back and forth on this, is that this is not in a container here. And it's, you can go back and forth. You could set a container at the body level or the main layout level. And then all of your pages have that container in it. Or you can set it at the page level. I'm going to set it at the page level. All right. Because I want to control that at the page level and not necessarily want one container, but sometimes I would just have one container. And the container is just going to set up the gutters on each side of the page. This right now is edge to edge, which I think is bad for most web pages. But you're going to see why I did it here in a second. So one thing I want to do on our page here is I want to set a background image to this that'll set up our app. And our app only has one page, so we're going to set the background in the body here. Start dialing in our style here. So come over back to this app CSS here, and I want to set a background here for this body. And we're going to use an image here that I already loaded in, which is, let's see, I think it's landing page. Now playing background. All right, so I'm going to have this now playing background. So I'm going to show it to you. It's just this wall of movies here. You know, and that's not the greatest. The viewing these in Visual Studio is kind of just, you know, it's okay. It's not great. You know, their image editor's much to be desired. It's not Photoshop. So it's just to see, hey, what is this thing? You know, like, so you can see I've got these kind of oil painting type images in here. So I'm going to use that as my base background. And then I'm going to style it so it looks better. So I'm going to use a new tag that you may not have heard of. This is the before element, which is a pseudo element. And so before, and it'll put the content at the top of this body tag, and then we're going to cover it like that. Okay. And you can see there VS Code or Copilot was trying to tell me what I wanted. And that's not exactly what I wanted. So I'm not going to put it in there. So with pseudo elements, you can only put text content in it, but you can put backgrounds in it. So this is what I want to do. So there's no text in this, and the position of this element is going to be fixed. And then I'm just going to top 0, top or left 0. So this will put this image in the background here real quickly here. Let's set the width. And I'm going to show off the blurring because we're going to be using that quite a bit in this app. So that way when I do it next time, as I go faster, it won't be surprised like, hey, what did that do? All right, so this will make this position, this content, fill up the entire page, left and right. All right, and then I'm going to put a background image on it. And this image is our background that we just looked at. And we need a URL here. And in this case, it is slash because we're not using that dumb assets thing. So like we're using an absolute path. And it should be now plain logo. And you can see Visual Studio kind of finds the images in that folder for me. And I'm going to set the background repeat. There's no repeat. Now I do these separate. A lot of people do this all in one background thing, and you can, but I just like them, see them separate because I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of CSS shortcut ways of showing margins and padding and those kind of things, and
sometimes it's better to have them separated because you're trying to mess with them, you know, and so you want to.
Right.
It's just easier to edit. Doesn't matter which way you do it. All right, I'm gonna do this right here, and then I'm gonna come back and enhance this. I want to show you kind of what I did to make it look good. Okay, I did nothing there. Let me make sure I refreshed it. I thought I did. All right, let's switch this to the side and see what it is. All right, that is crazy. Nothing's working today, Kevin.
The body before doesn't have to be literally before the body tag in the CSS, does it?
No.
Okay.
Let me just. It is images, right? It is PNG. All right.
Check the typos.
So I'm looking now, just so I can see. I got it all on one screen so we can kind of see what it is. Background image, repeat, cover. This is size, repeat, no repeats, image. Unless, okay, it should work.
Does it matter that says background none on body?
Well, that's what I wanted it, and then this content comes in and sets it. That's what I wanted it to do.
Okay.
I mean, but I don't know why it doesn't show up there. Okay. The simplest things, dude.
Is there a way to inspect it to see if any of those things are?
It's just it's in a background, so yeah, I'm inspecting it now. So you look at this body tag. You can see it's not in there. There it is. That's a real image there.
Okay, Jacob says you can select the before element from the dev tools.
Yeah, this is the element right here. But what I was going to do is add a filter to this. Just there's surely, I know that's not what it is. I'm going to add it anyway because we're going to blur it anyway. Empty cache reload. All right, man. Surely this is not it, right? No, it can't be, but we'll try it. But like, because I just looked at it in the dev tools and it found it.
Right.
So this is just CSS.
We know that
so.
Right. We know that it sees the image, right?
Yeah.
It's just not displaying.
That's not it. Yeah, I know this is right. I know this is right. Size cover 100%. Background size cover center. So we can take this off since we're setting the center. Position fixed, and there's nothing before it. Body, background, none.
It's not another element somewhere like overriding it somewhere.
Well, it's just on the body tag. I mean, you know, it's just stupid. So. Let's look at our app CSS here. Or app razor. This is their endpoint page. I messed the page up somehow. I might have to call a friend here, man. I don't know why this isn't working. This is the simplest thing ever. It looks like it should work.
Is there any way to test it without having, I don't know, just trying to get it to just appear on the page somehow? Like, literally don't put any of the other things on it, just have background image there. Should it just appear if there's just, even if
it should
it's
appear like that?
Okay, let's test that then.
Yeah.
Because that'll tell us whether that's the URL part, right? Or the...
Mm-hmm. There we go. All right, we'll just leave it there.
That works.
Just do it like this.
So we know it's something to do with it being in the pseudo element then, right? That's the issue.
Yeah. So we'll just move it over here. I think.
Now, why did you originally want to put it in a pseudo element? What was the...
Because I wanted the background to be different, but it's okay though. Let's see if it's covering up everything. This is why, because it's covering up everything and pushing it down.
Oh, I see.
So, I don't know why this should just work, but it doesn't. What have I done to this thing? I don't know. You know what? We're gonna move on, dude. This doesn't matter. It just doesn't right now. I'll figure it out later. Because we got other stuff to do. And I will say that sometimes, it doesn't matter. I don't know why that won't render in there.
I don't know. Let's come back to it.
Makes no sense to me. Yeah, we're going to come back to it. All right. So what I'm going to do now is let's look at our page here. And so if we go over to our client side here, we're going to build our pages in here. And so right now we have a page in here called home. All right. And so if we look at this page here, this is our hello world. It's got this route on it. All right. Okay. So I'm going to change this route to home. And we can get rid of it, but I'm just going to leave it alone for now. And we're not going to use this page. And we're going to make a brand new page on our client app because we want to write an interactive page. So this is a server page that just gets loaded in. So what I'm going to do is create a brand new page on the client side. So come here to the client project, and then we're going to make a new folder here. New folder. And we use a naming convention here. I got to stop this so I can name it folder. Components. So we're going to say components. And then inside of components, we have a folder called pages. And then inside of components, we also have a folder called UI. And these are UI components, which UI components are non-pages. And then we have pages components. So that's kind of the base level that we have going on here for the client side. So you got to keep track of this. So these pages are going to run interactive. And I'm going to right click and add a new Razor component. And we can call this component whatever we want. So let's call it Obscura game. And the reason I'm naming it after the game is that let's say that this kind of expands and I'm like, oh, I want more than one game for this. I want multiple pages. We could be able to build multiple pages here. Okay, click add. And then to make this a page, I just need to add a route component or a page attribute. And this will make, and if I put slash here, it'll make it the default route. Super easy. And so like if you've ever worked with other component frameworks, setting up a routes can be a little bit difficult. This is what you do. And then at runtime, when it's compiled, it figures out how to listen for this page and find it. And you can notice that the route can be different than what this is named. All right. And so we're going to come in and start building out our page here. And pretty simple. We're going to put a div container around the whole thing. And this is why I don't put a div or a container on the parent page, because I want to control how it looks inside of here completely. So I have the complete canvas to work with, and I'm going to make this a container XXL, which I'll show you what it does here in a second. Right. And we're going to center it. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a logo up here. So I think that'll be appropriate for our page here. So inside of here, I'll put this in a block just in case. And this will be Kevin's cool logo. Now notice here, it doesn't find the folder because I'm in this client project here. But because these two projects are really connected, when it sees a route here for like resources like images or whatever, it looks in this on the server to do that. And this is your server up here. So it's a little bit. So we're going to use, we've got a white PNG, I think. Yeah, white. This white one here. So I'm going to rename it and then grab the whole file name so I don't misspell it. All right, and then I'm going to add a title to this, our class. So I'm going to make class, and we'll start building out our class file for this thing, like that. And then self-closing tag, boom. All right, so I'm going to quickly add a style, and then we'll have all this kind of set up out. Okay, so new item. Style sheet. It's always named after the component. So in our case, it's Obscura game.razor. And then I'm gonna make sure this casing's right. And if it tucks under here, then you named it right. If it's not tucked under this, you didn't. So it's that simple. So, you know, and then here I'm going to create a title image class, and I'm just going to set the max height. Usually for logos, it's 60 to 70 pixels. We'll just do it like this and see what it does. And it's not equal, it's colon. Okay, so now we should be able to run this, and then we have our new page with our logo up.
Thinking about it now, you know, we're not going to see the white because you didn't change the background.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You're going to have to use the black version.
All right, and this is, I don't know, it's got something going on. Oh, let's see here. Slash images, Obscura. We'll go and use the black one.
I think you just changed the W to a B, isn't it?
I think that's what you did. I'm going to go check it.
Yeah, go check. I could be wrong. Yeah, there you go.
And we're going to push it down a little bit so I can put a little margin at the top. All right, let's see if that worked. Did I stop it? I stopped it. goes. There we go. Logo. Yay, something worked, Kevin.
Hey.
All right, so now we have like this logo here. We'll figure out the background a little bit, but now we can start kind of laying out our page. And this is where it'll get sort of complicated from the CSS side. So we can remember our wireframe. We need an image here. And then we want our controls on the right side. And then we have this, we'll get to this layout maybe today, maybe not. So that's kind of what we want to build. So it's pretty easy. So I'm going to leave this at the top. And so this is a block element, means it'll be stacked. So then I'm going to make a div element underneath this. And this is where everything is going to be put together. So I'm going to match these containers. And just for fun, I'm going to put a border on it so you can kind of see kind of what this container XSL is doing. So you can see. So you can see now it's going edge to edge. It's got this red container here. Okay. There's nothing in it, so it doesn't go to the bottom, right? So basically containers in general, and then one of the frustrating things about CSS in general is like, by default, it goes to the height of its content. So the HTML pages aren't trying to stretch the page. So you got to kind of make it do it. So we're going to make this stretch down when it has content. Okay. And then our footer's already stretching, but this is inside of this other layer and it's not stretching down. So right now you just see this one red line. Okay. So if I put some hello world in here, and then bring it back up, you can see now our components now to the height of its content. All right. Kind of cool. Everybody get that? So I'm sure they did.
Yep.
All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a container myself. And I like calling them whatever container. So I'm going to say container, and I'm going to call it game container. And we're going to style this up using Flexbox to move this stuff around. And we're going to have multiple things going on. We're going to have a side game board, and then we got a poster container. Okay. So our poster will go in our game board container. And then on the right side, we got this control thing, and we'll call that a controllers container. All right. So let's make two divs here, and we'll name them. And if you name your classes right, it makes it easy to figure out what's going on. So we'll say game board. Could be poster, and we'll call it game board. In case, you know, I want to use this for something else. You know, maybe I'll make another game, and I can use the same layout. Maybe, maybe not. And then I'm going to make another one here that's stacked on top of that, and I'm going to call this controls. So one of the things I like to do is to kind of scaffold out the page first so that I know kind of where I'm going. And even though I haven't built these styles yet, I'll go ahead and name them, and then I'll name them in my style sheet. So I've got a game container, and then the game board container, and then a controls container. So all these will be independently moved around, but this parent will control it. So let's go over here and work on that one container. And I could have used Bootstrap for this, but when it gets complicated like this, I want to use just straight up CSS. It's easier. It doesn't mess up the markup on my page. So this is the game container. So this is our parent element, and we'll say flex 1, so it'll get big. And its display mode is Flexbox. And its flex direction is column. So what this does is this will make those two boxes, game board and controllers, go side by side instead of on top by default. Default is on top of each other. I can put a little gap between them so they're separated a little bit. Not much, just one rim. And then I can use these justify content to center it. And this is the centering stuff inside of on the different axes. Let's center that content. And then a line will center it. So it'll be centered horizontally and vertically in the middle here. And don't get me started. I don't know why justify content and line items. Why are they not named? Thing? I don't know. It should be.
It's to confuse you, I think.
Yeah. So I'm sure someone in chat knows. Sure, there's
legacy. There's some legacy print layout reason or something, which is a lot of CSS draws from actual old school print layout, doesn't it? It's like you're talking about rems.
This should be justify items, is what it should be. So, whatever.
Right.
So that's our game container, right? Right. Now, the other thing that I'm going to go ahead and do, I'll show you kind of what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this up to work in mobile. Okay. So. All right. And so now that I have them in columns, they're going to stack on top of each other. All right. I'm going to go ahead and set this up to work in my large format that I'm working with. So basically what you do is you design for mobile first, and when you're in your CSS, and then for the larger size, you write classes to override that. And this is a media query. And so 992, which 992 pixel is going to be something above a tablet or round in tablet range, depending on the tablet. And what we can do is take this style and put it in here. So it conditionally changes this style based on the width of the screen. And I don't need to change it all. So really I want to do is just change this to row. And align items start. I can just delete everything else out of here. So it takes what it can from this one, and then this is just the overrides. Or you can just completely copy the class and stick it there and work the same way. It doesn't really matter. Depends on how you like looking at it. If you want to just see the changes, do the changes. If you want to see everything, just copy the class in there. All right, so now we have a mobile first design and we have two containers. So let's go here and look at this page here, and let's add a border on these containers so I can show you what I just did. And hopefully this helps people. So I'm going to make this one info. So that's going to like a turquoise. And I'm not sure if it changed it, but maybe not. Maybe I need to refresh it. And we may have to say game.
Right?
Yeah, maybe content controls. All right. So there you go. So that can kind of cool, right? And then as it gets bigger, they should go side by side.
Cool.
All right. So now we have this mobile first design. So we can look at it like this when we're trying when we want to, but if we spread it out, we go, okay, cool. So that's Flexbox. All right. Nothing major there. Okay. All right. So let's drop in some more content in this thing and see what else we can come in. So let's start filling this out a little bit. So this will get a little bit hairy here in a second. So, but it's okay. We'll do it one at a time and we'll get there. All right. So inside of here, I'm going to make another div in here. And this is going to be my poster container. Because what's going to happen is I need to, the only reason I know it's because we tried to vibe code this thing, so like, I know that I need a poster and I need layers on top of this poster. All right. So let's just drop a poster in to begin with. So I'm going to say image source equals, and we'll just hard code one. And I think I have it up here on my server side. I'm going to use this Raiders poster PNG. And I know that I'm going to want to style this. So I am going to give these some styles here. And I'm going to just call it poster image. And we'll work on the styles here in a second. All right. My hot reload's working pretty good. So I got this Indiana Jones poster in here now. So there you go. And we're going to have our controls there. So that's looking pretty decent at this point. I mean, we could style this up, you know, probably if we get smaller, that's really big, you know, that's too big for the small. So let's work on our mobile first and get this kind of dialed in, at least size wise. Okay. So I think we can do that. And should be pretty cool, easy. All right, so let's pull this off to the side here. See if we can. The moment I do this, Hotly Reload will quit working, Kevin. So
well, actually, the version you have there looks all right in that.
In that one right there.
Yeah, it actually had a gap on the left and right. Yeah, look.
There you go. I know when it gets big, it goes edge to edge. And so I'm going to like style it up a little bit. I don't like things edge to edge. It's just me though.
Yeah. The version that you showed a second ago wasn't edge to edge though. When you dragged it aside, it had a...
Yeah, it just depends on what width it's on.
Okay.
We're not
going
to
to force it to have a gap there. Right.
Yeah. Let me get my code back over here. All right. So, all right. Now... All right. All right, let's get these size. There we go. All right, now we're looking good. Let's stop this real quick. Time here. All right, so now we've got a container that we have, and I got a poster, and we're going to work on just styling it up a little bit. And then we've got to get it ready to be able to like layer stuff over it. Okay, so right here I've got this poster container, and this is what's holding this poster. But this container can move around relative to wherever we squeeze the browser so they can move. And that's what we want to happen. And we want the poster to stay locked on to this container no matter what. All right. So to do that, we just need to work on our CSS a little bit. We'll go back into the client page here. And so we're going to create a poster container. And the other thing too that I'm going to move this around. I put these in order as I do them in the page. There's no real order to CSS. Like, you know, you just got to put them all on there. And that's one of the problems with CSS. It's kind of hard to manage. But we're going to make this to make sure it is right now relative, but we're going to make sure that it's relative, which means it'll move around with the browser. As we make it wider or shorter or whatever, this container will move around. That's what we want to happen. We're going to go ahead and set a height though. And we're going to make it be one size. And the reason we're doing this is because we need to lay something on top of it and we need to know what size it is. And so the browser won't be able to figure it out if it doesn't know what size it is. So this is our 4x3 setup. That's kind of what the size is going to be. And then we're going to set the margin, we'll let it figure it out. And we're going to also add like a box shadow to this. Okay, so if you don't know what box shadows are, it kind of adds a little flavor to it. And this is outside the poster, but it'll look like it's underneath the poster because the poster is going to fill it up. So you can make a RGB, and it's something as simple as it's mostly black. That's what 00 is. And then you can add something like a transparency level to it. And then you can move it around. But I'm just going to come up with a fog shadow that's left and right and off to the edge a little bit, and you can see it. And you can make them as big as you want. Make them whatever color you want. All right. So that's kind of cool. And then we'll set the background color to this thing. A hack. I don't know if this is necessary, but I know that filter doesn't always work on everybody's machine. So I'm going to blur this image. So like this allows the blur to be seen. If it's transparent, sometimes it doesn't work on some machines. So I just know that this container needs a background of some sort. And then if it's too big, we're going to just hide it. That's kind of cool. All right. All right. So this shouldn't do anything, but we'll see. Looks like. So now it made our poster container smaller, which is what we wanted to happen, right? Now we were going to also bring this back in and make it larger again. So that's our mobile first look. And then I'm going to go ahead and dial this back out. So notice I'm working from mobile up. And this is going to be 768 pixels, which is tablet and up. Right? I could make it all. Thanks. Those are hard to find. All right. So it's going to be 768 pixels, sort of wide, kind of an iPad Air. And then I can take the poster container and stick that in here. There's various schools of thought in here. If this gets really complicated, I sometimes will just take the media queries and put them at the bottom of the page and put all the classes in it. And then there's some people that like to see their media queries beside the class itself, so they know that's being changed. It's kind of up to you. But I'm going to bring this back out to a bigger size. So we're going to bigger pages here. Now, of note, this is the same aspect ratio between these two. I actually put it in Photoshop to see kind of what the aspects were. If you don't know those natively, I don't.
Right.
I
mean, who does? So, who goes around remembering that stuff?
I mean, yeah, some people do. They know it. Like, they're math genius. I can't even get a background image to wear today. So, who am I? So I'm going to add a border radius. This will round the edges a little bit. Because you'll see what we're going to do here. And this kind of cool. Border radius, IUS. Just to add a little bit of style to it. So it doesn't look so square, and it's anything. Okay. It's pretty cool. I probably have to do this. I've got it in there. Okay. Yeah. Good. Now, so this is the container. So this is the background, and you can see now my poster is in there and it's like cut off because of this overflow hidden, right? That's exactly what we wanted to happen. And so now, because we're working in layers, you got to think about the containers in the back, and I'm getting ready to put a poster on top of it. All right. And if I look at this right here, it's in the top, but I can use this poster image class to now style that to match the container. And then the poster will come back and be resized correctly. All right. So we do that with our poster image class. So poster image. And that's the class that we put on the image itself. And here we say position, and this is the trick. All right. So if you're still here, pay attention. So now I can say position absolute. And position absolute will now turn this from a relatively positioned element, which means it moves around, to where, think of it like a sticker. and it's stuck to poster and container now because it's inside it, because it's a child element of it. So now we're turning this into a sticker on top of poster and container. And that means that when this moves, this will move exactly with it. Just like if you put a sticker on a box and you move the box around, the sticker doesn't move, but it goes with the box. And that's what we want. And we're going to position this absolutely 0, which is the top as far as it can go, which is what we want for a poster, and then left, as far as it can go left at the 0 position. And then we're going to set its width to 100%. Now, the reason this works is because we set a height and width here. That's why we did it, because we're going to set this, say, take up 100%, but since it's in a container, it can only be 750 or 500 or 300, depending on the whatever it's sitting at. All right, so it's going to be dynamically changed based on its parent container, and that's because it's absolutely positioned. So we can do something like this. All right, and we're going to set the padding, make sure it's 0, and we're going to set the Z index. Actually, we're going to let's do this. Let's get rid of this. Let's do some others. We're going to say object fit. And I'm going to make sure that it covers its whole thing. So there could be a case where on the edges, it kind of doesn't work. And we're also going to match the border radius of this, so it'll round it as well. Pretty simple. And we'll say background color is transparent. Doesn't really matter. And we'll display block. And hopefully change it. Hopefully it'll resize our image up.
Let's see.
There you go. See, now it's rounded. And you can see I put this border on here so you can see where the container is. You can see it. And then when we get bigger, it'll dynamically change. So it'll be bigger now. And so now we can take that border off and it just looks like a stylized poster. It's also got this slight little, it's hard to see on the screen, a slight little box shadow on it. We could get bigger box shadows. But all right. So let's go back over here and let's take our border stuff off so we can kind of see it now. See it in its glory. So now it's off. So now it's just rounded. Kind of cool.
Nice.
I think so. I mean, it's kind of cool, then we got this poster here. All right. We got a lot of work to do still, but now we have at least a poster that's stylized. And now we can work on this control section over here. And so we could lay this control section out. Then we'll come back once we have some ability to impact it. We'll come back to this and put a layer on top of it and blur it out, so that we can have our squares blurred out. So that's where we'll get to today. All right. So now that we have this image in here, okay, and this is getting way more complicated as we go, but we'll work on the control section now. I think we can move on a little bit. And I do like to get some of the stuff just kind of all wired in so I can kind of see how it's going to look to make sure that, it's going to look good. All right. Okay. So I've got a controls container, and it's got this border info on it. I am going to round this, right? And rounded will make this round, and obviously. And then in here, I'm going to use a bootstrap trick here, which is data BS theme dark. Because eventually, and this is a attribute, not in the class. Let me get this out of here. Data yes theme. And what this will do is make this all styled as dark mode inside this container here. Okay, and then we'll take this border info off. We don't need this anymore. All right, so we've got a game container or controls container, and we've got styled it dark. And let's see what happens. All right, so I think that'll work for now. And then inside of here, let's start laying out what we're going to do. And div, a couple of divs in here. All right, class equals mt-4. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a form. And this is where we're going to actually start writing some Blazor code here, because we're going to go ahead and make a form that the person can submit to. And to do that, we need to edit form component from Blazor. And this is like a form tag. If you've ever used forms inside HTML, this is the same thing, except it's now kind of on steroids. And so for each form that we have, we need a model class. And so we can come down here and create a model class. And we can call it whatever we want, but I'm going to call it form model for lack of a better name. It's the model for my form. And we'll have a bunch of classes in this page eventually, I imagine. So nothing to, a lot to do here. So I'm going to create a region. And this is so I can collapse code. I'm going to say models. And this is just a thing, the in region. This is just a thing, a collapsation inside the editor. So just that. So we can organize our code a little better. So I'm gonna make a public class for model. And this is the thing about Blazor, everything is type safe. And so we have a lot of things that we can do here. But this just means that when we pass this model around, the type, which is string or integer, is consistent. And it's not like runtime compilation like it is in JavaScript. So you get, it checks it at design time, which is cool. Saves you for a lot of errors. So in this model that we can submit, this is our page that we can submit. We're going to submit a movie title. And we're also going to get its release date. The reason I know I'm going to need this is that, Kevin, there can be sequels. So, Hollywood hasn't met a sequel it doesn't like.
Well, they do remakes, right? I guess that's the
remakes, sequels, requels, prequels.
Yeah. We just tend to remake the same movie, just worse most of the time.
Yeah. Sometimes they have the same title. So like, you see Toy Story out there and you're like, wow, that's Toy Story. Which one was that? I don't know. All right. So I can also, with this, I can use data annotations to make this element required in my form. Okay. And so you can see here, I've got this error here, and usually it'll help me, and it'll let me say using. So I can make this using statement up here. And what that does is it brings in functionality to my page from the .NET framework. And it knows that now when I use this on a form, it's automatically going to make it required, which is kind of cool. All right. So let's go back up to our form. So every form needs the values that you're going to put in the form to edit. Okay. And so you just come up here and say model equals, and then you type in that name, but we just created form model. And it'll find it. If it doesn't, it's going to be green. Okay. So it's like, hey, you know what? This is a type, right? Well, we can't use the type. This just describes what it is. We actually need a new model to be created at runtime. All right. So we can't use the type. The type it's just that we need an instance of form model. So right here in our code block, we can create a variable. Let's call it form model. That's the type of variable. And then I'm going to name it form model. If that doesn't confuse you. And new. Okay, so what this is doing is for this type, make a new variable that holds this type. And then when we say new, it'll put the default values in here, which doesn't have any. Okay, so then I can change this to lowercase form model. And that's a variable. This is an instance, and this is a type. And this is when we say, or this is an object, and this is a class, the object-oriented programming. What's the difference between a class, an instance, or a class and an object? This is creating an object, a form model, and this is the class right here that defines it. This is the blueprint. This is the actual house, if you think of it that way. All right, that makes sense, Kevin?
So far, so good.
Sure. All right, let's keep going. All right, because I'm using this required it, I can go ahead and bring in this data annotations validator, and it'll give me validations around the form. I don't have to do anything. So if you've ever write this in JavaScript, there's a lot to do, but this will validate the form. It'll make sure that you can't hit the guess button until you have a title in it. And the validations get very complex. And so we'll work on some of those later. Okay, so inside my form here, I'll lay this out with HTML, pretty easy. And I'm going to use some Bootstrap stuff here. And one of the ones I really like is HStack, which creates a very quick flexbox that makes them horizontally stacked. So shortcut. And so it's going to be horizontally stacked, okay, up and down. And then in here, I'm going to make an input text. And from here, I'm going to say, I need someone to enter in the movie title. All right, so I'm going to use form control, which is a Bootstrap style. And then in here, I'm also going to have a placeholder. And this is just HTML, all right, at this point. Enter a movie title, Pretty simple. Pretty simple, right? The other thing I hate is I'm going to turn autocomplete off. So if you've ever used Chrome, it tries to complete every form automatically, no matter what. And I don't want that to happen. I want to turn that off. I don't want that to happen. And I'm going to set these on different lines so we can see kind of the changes I'm going to make here. So this form is going to have several changes that I want to do. And I'm going to say autocorrect. I don't want to do that either, because I'm using movie titles. I don't want you to, I want to type in the exact thing that I want. And spell check will be off as well. So if you had a spell checker plugin, you can turn it off. So it doesn't know what you do. So this will turn them all off. All right, so let's just get rid of this now. All right, so that's our placeholder control. And then in here, for every input that you have on a form with a model, you need to tell it which of the fields in this model will go in here. So I'm going to add that in here too as well. So I'm going to say at bind value. And this is two-way binding. This is also one of the really cool things inside of Blazor, is that if you change these values in code, it will automatically update your form. But you can see here, this is type ahead, and it knows about this model, and boom, right there. I can just add that in there because it knows what these are. You don't have to discover it at all. And then I'm going to put a hidden field underneath this. So, and I'm going to use input type equals hidden. So I don't want this to be bound to the model necessarily. And just hidden, and we're going to put kind of release date. Now, I don't know if we're going to need this, but you know. I might not need it. And this will be release date because I need to know the difference of which one I have. All right. So that's kind of our base level form here. So if I save this, let's see if it'll there it goes. So now we have this movie title in here. Kind of cool. So we could enter in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Something like that. Now we need a button. And I know that it takes a lot to style these, but like I can tell you that if you style your apps up, it's going to be better when you show them off to people. It looks better if it's cooler looking. I'm going to add a validation message here, validation message. And this is part of the form handling. If you've tried to do this in JavaScript, this is cool. I mean, it just really is. I mean, like you just write an expression method and you tell it which one of the model that's on the form do you want me to validate for. In this case, it's movie title. It's pretty simple. So this the form building inside of .NET is really, 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 really cool. Can't explain it enough. All right, and this needs to go inside the edit form. All right, so that's kind of cool, right? So we got a form, we got this. We could probably use some kind of button somewhere, right? Probably. So we got this right here. Need a button. All right, let's do this. Let's add a button inside this stack here. We'll style it with Bootstrap. And the type of this equals submit. And we'll guess for now. So now we have a button here. So that's pretty cool. Doesn't seem like a lot, but hey, you know, we're getting there. Okay. All right. So now that we've got this, let's work on this control container and make a square around this so we can make that style up a little better. Now we have a form. So we'll go in here and let's work on our control container to make it look a little better. So poster container, game container. Let's put it right here. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to say padding 10px and width is 100%. Max width. We're just at a max width so that we know kind of how wide it needs to be. So it's 500 pixels, maybe something like that. And then background color, we're gonna make it darker. So all ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, I think is right. And we're gonna put a border around it. So we're gonna make a little rounded kind of control here. Light color. thin line and the style. Solid. And border radius, I like 20. Okay, didn't like those changes, so we'll put it in here. Sometimes in these isolated style sheets, it didn't like the changes, so. So now we have this kind of border in here, kind of cool. Now this is kind of what it's going to look like. And it look like this. And then we're going to add some more stuff as we go here. Okay, so let's add on the next layer here, which is our hints. Then we'll work on coming back to this and adding in our blurs over top of it with our guesses. Right? Okay, so I've got this right here, and this is controlling this form. So I want something underneath this form, but inside this container. So I'm going to drop a nav element here. And we're going to use Bootstrap for this. And this just, we could use div. It doesn't really matter, but we'll just call it nav because that's what it is. And these are just Bootstrap controls. If you want to look up how to do this, go read Bootstrap, but like I've just been doing this for a minute. So I want some tabs where they'll hold a hint and a guess. And so I want to say ID equals nav-tab and role equals tab list. Right? And we'll have a couple buttons that'll be our tab. Then we have to style each button. So this is a nav-link. We'll make the first one active. And we have to give this an ID. Nav hint -tab. And then Bootstrap gives us this easy way to toggle them off. So this is just a Bootstrap thing that you got to do. So this tells it to be a toggle. I'll make this bigger so we can see kind of what's going on. And so this could be in data-bs-target says which element on the page do you want me to show? And this is done by ID. So we're going to call this, we're going to have a hint and we're going to have a guess. So first one, we'll do hints first. Have hint. And it's a type equals button. It's a lot. So let me push this down so we can see kind of what's going on here. All right. And this is for the readers, so selected. True. The reason we put this in there is for readers. So when it's selected, it can tell the visually impaired reader that this tab is selected, right? And so in here, we'll just say hints. Put a button like that, something like this. You can put it all on one line if you want to, or you can tab these in, whatever you want to do. When I get long, I like putting them like this, sort of. All right, so I got this other button here. And this is for the guesses. So it's going to be kind of the same thing. So I'm just going to copy what I just did here. Just make a new button and change it. And it's not active by default. Take that off. It's a different ID. We'll call it guess tab. Yes. And false. And here, instead of hints, we'll use the word guesses. Okay, it did save it, so we can look at it, what it looks like. So now we have this like tab interface here. You can notice because we use Bootstrap, it's already got these kind of smooth animations in it, kind of neat. So now we just need to add the elements for each pane that goes under here, and that's what they're called, the panes. So underneath this nav element, directly underneath it, I'm going to add a pane to it. So div and class equals, and this is tab dash content. That's the Bootstrap styling that we need. And then the ID is nav dash tab content. All right. And these IDs here will turn each one off. Okay. So then inside of here, I need a div, the first one, and this tab pane is how you style this up. So it'll look right. I'm going to say border 0. I'm going to fade them in. Show active. So that means this one initial state will be turned on. This will be our hints. All right. In here, we have to give it the right ID. And notice this pound hint here matches this right here. So that's what you got to match them up or it won't show up. That's pretty easy. And then role equals tab panel. And then this is for the reader stuff, and then we set its index to 0. All right, pretty basic here. So we can also push this here. And we don't have any hints yet, but we need some content in here. So I'm going to write up some content here real quick. I'm going to use a UL list here. And just so that we can tell if it's working or not. Hints, and then li here. Whoops. And class equals list group item. And here we'll use our Bootstrap icons here. I'm just going to get an icon here, and I'm going to label these with a number. There is a built-in number, but I want a stylized number. So bi dash 1, I think. Yep. And then we're going to say hint would be hint goes here. So I could copy these real quick, make a couple of them so you can see what it does. We'll change these with data coming back when we get it done, but we need to kind of work on that. So then I have that tab pane done. I'm going to copy this and make another one. And this will be for the guesses. But I got to change all this stuff. So this is nav guess. And guess tab. And then ID guesses. And here we can just change this to guess. So now we got sort of here. All right. Oh, oops. I see what we did wrong here. See what we did wrong. We put them all in the same LI, so we need to fix that. So we got this here. Let's fix this real quick. So this is LI. So wrap each one of these. I don't know why I tried to put a style sheet in there. So now we've got these hints right here. Sure enough, why is our icons not going in there? Oh. I'm going to have to look up the Bootstrap icon, Kevin, to see kind of what it's called. I thought I knew that. I don't know what it is. Documents. Yeah. Because it's not showing up, so. So it's one fill. Okay, I see. All right. Gotcha. I don't have everything committed to memory. That isn't obvious today. So. But that's why I keep that stuff open so I can just do it. So now we got these kind of cool, right? ME1. And then I can just put a margin at the end here so that it separates it from my hint. Yep. It's inside the icon tag. I don't want that. I want it outside the icon tag. All right, so now we got these three things here. We need to fix this one. All right, it's also not, these need to be inactive. So we'll take those off. All right, so now when we go to guesses, it shows up here now. So we can take these right here and copy these into here. And then we'll say guess 1, 2, 3. All right. So now we got hints and guesses. Got an extra LI here somehow. And an extra group here. Now we're looking good. All right, cool. So now it looks this side by side. So this, you'll guess a movie, and then you'll have your hints will go here, and then your guesses will go here. We need some other controls down here, maybe a play again button, and then we'll be finished with our base UI. We won't work on that settings page today, Kevin. We'll do that when we do it all at once. That way we can get onto the cooler part of like making this game sort of work. Cool. All right, so let's keep adding on some stuff here. See what else we can do. So underneath these tab panes and this tab content, so I'm going to collapse this down. So this is my tab content. I use this quite a bit when I collapse stuff, so I can kind of see what's going on. So underneath that tab content, I want to add in some buttons. And so div, and then this will be a H stack. And this is a horizontal stack from left to right. We're going to put some buttons down in here somewhere like that. So I'll scroll that up a little bit if you can see. And this is a Flexbox. So you can use the Flexbox positioning stuff, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to push all the buttons to the end. I like buttons right justified. I don't know why. I just think it looks right that way. So go button. And we're going to make a play it again button. And then we're going to make a instruction button. And then we're going to make a settings button. So I think we're going to make 3 buttons. So boom, boom. Okay, let's start with our leftmost button, which is play it again. So we'll say play. This ain't going to work right off the bat, but all right, so we got a button here. Justify. Okay, let's make it info. Let's make it bluer. All right. I don't know. Something like that. And then here, what I'm going to do is in this button, I'm just going to put an icon in here. So I'm going to make an icon button. Questions circle, I think is what it's called, Kevin. I think. I hope. Text secondary. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I celebrate the small wins, Kevin.
You drag that window up so we can see it behind your head.
Yeah, I can. All right.
Just half size it or something.
Actually, I can just do it like that. How about that?
Sure.
All right. And then I'm just putting an icon in here because this is at the bottom of the screen, unfortunately. So, like, I don't know if I could get it higher or not. But it's going to look like that. So I've got these buttons here. I'm going to make them bigger with a style, and then I'm going to put a settings button in here. Same kind of deal here. And I think this is gear. I think. What's it called? Gear. I think it's called gear.
Yeah, on that preview window there, just scroll it down. Don't have to make it bigger. Just scroll down so we can see it.
Okay. Yeah.
small again, and then just scroll down on the side of it.
There you go.
Half size it again. So drag it up from the bottom. Yeah, like up from the bottom.
Yeah, from the bottom.
Yeah, drag it up.
If it'll let me.
It might not. You might drag it from the top and then drag it up.
Yeah.
There you go, and then scroll it. Yeah, and then scroll so we can see it. There you go. Now you can put yourself back.
All right. Look at you. All right. So like, I don't know why this, I got to spell stuff right there. Content in should push it right. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. So we can make some styles here to make these hover buttons like this works. And so this isn't built into Bootstrap, so you got to kind of make your own. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to make a control button class so that I can style it up so we can make it look good. And again, people wonder, why do you spend so much time on the UI? Because when people see stuff, they're visual buyers. And so if you're making something, it should look good. You know, and if it doesn't look good, it doesn't matter how good your code is. They'll just think you kind of suck. So now whether you think this looks good or not, I don't know, but like I think it looks good. You know. And then what I'm going to do here is make a controls button class, and then for any icons that's inside of a button, I'm going to change its font size to kind of bigger. And if you didn't know this, an icon is a font. So we can just set the font size of it. And rem is a relatively sized font. So it's based on the size of the current font, which comes in at 1. So it'd be half times bigger, 50% bigger. And then I can make a hover element here. And we're going to see right now if my themes work, because I don't know if they are, because I'm noticing that they're not there, but we'll see if I can set it here. All right, so this is controls button, and this is controls button. I didn't spell it all the way out. All right, so I need to add this class to my page and should style these things. So I can come over here and what did I call it? Controls button instead of BTN controls dash button. So I'm just going to add it to this style. And what it should do is target this class here, this icon, if it, and it made it bigger. See how I made it bigger? And now I've got the hover on it. So magic of CSS. Boom, check it out. That's pretty neat. You know, and these will eventually open up different windows and this will play again. So pretty much that's our UI, I think, right, Kevin? Is that kind of where we're at? That's kind of what we thought we would build, right?
Yeah, looked like it to me.
I mean, it's looking pretty good. So now we could just, what I want to do is type in anything in here and hit guess and program this to remove the different things from the page. And I think we'll be done. I don't even know how long we've been here. What time is it?
2:20.
2:20. Is it possible for me to take a 1 minute break? I need to hit the restroom real quick. Can we do that?
Sure.
I know we can. So
we can do whatever we want.
But yeah, I know we can. I'll be right back and see you in a second. All right, Kevin, I'm back.
Okay.
Nature called, so sorry about that, people. So, all right, so what I want to do now is get this button to do something. You can see right now it doesn't do anything. So we need to make this button work when you type in something here. But first we need to blur out this poster by adding a poster overlay. And then we'll work on our button here. And this is probably the most complicated thing to do in this. Well, I don't know. Probably random movie guess is complicated, but this is definitely some CSS magic here to make this work. For sure. And so all right. So let's first see if we can just blur this poster out maybe. So I'm going to collapse the controls container. That's what we've been working on. Now we're in this poster container here. And this is going to be in steps here. We got to work on CSS, but we also got to add in some other things here. So I'm going to add in a div inside the container here. So remember, the container is relative. All right. And we're going to call this class that we're going to use poster overlay. Now, when I first do this, it's going to be stacked under here. So don't get worried. It's going to stack under here first. All right. But it'll be okay. So we're going to create a bunch of rows here, and then we're going to row columns and 3 and a G0. All right. So all this is doing is saying, hey, I'm going to make a row out of whatever you put in here, and it's going to have 3 columns. So we're going to have I'm going to make 4 rows, which will be 12, and it'll have 3 divs in each one. All right. So I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to just use some code here to do it real quick. So I'm going to show you kind of what we could do here. So I'm going to say for, we'll stop the code here so we can let it up. And we'll come back and maybe change this a little bit, but like we're going to write some Razor code to generate this for us. All right. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make something like an element that's going to hold all these squares. Okay. And I'm going to make another class here inside of our models here to hold our squares. And our squares are kind of complicated, but like basically it needs to know if it's visible or not, that kind of stuff. All right. So we're just going to make a public class here. Probably could do it with just a Boolean, but in case it gets complicated, I go ahead and make a class. And basically, we're just going to have one thing, and it'll be a Boolean, and we'll say show for now. Maybe that's all we need. So this is a square, and it has a type on it called show. And so each one of these will be either visible or not. And then I'm going to make a list of these, which I need a bunch of them. I need at least 12, right? So I'm going to come up here, create another state variable here. And we're going to make a region here. So these are state variables that we use to control various things on the page. Right, so we can move this in here, this region here. So I'm going to make something called a square list, a list of squares. And they're blank, all right? And this is just a square. I can simplify this. So I'll just do it like this. All right, so I've got a list of squares that I want, and it's of these types. And so basically it's a list of Booleans that says which one of these are visible or not visible. And then I want to take this list and put them in here based on how many I need. So I'm going to create another variable here as well, because we could vary this. We could make like a super hard mode and make this like 18 squares, or super easy 6, you know, something like that. But we'll default it to 12. That's kind of where I think it's pretty good. All right. So I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna write some methods, I think, to control all this, because I think it'll get sloppy if I don't. So in here, call it. Let's call it game flow region, game flow. Hashtag it. So I'm going to write a method that I'm going to call, and it's going to reset game, because we're going to have all these things that we want to reset. I'm going to say reset game state. So when we play it again, we're going to be able to do this, right? And first thing we're going to do is square list equals new. And I'm just going to initialize this to start at 1. And we're going to go square counts. And I call that a square count. Wow. I misspelled square 3 ways. Look at that, Kevin. That's awesome.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it's like I can't spell square. All right, so this is basically going to loop over this thing and make some new squares, right? So there's some other ways to do this that's a little bit, probably a little less typing, but that's okay. It shows you kind of what we're doing. And then I can't type square. And then square list, we'll add 1. All right. Okay, so now I have when I call this will make a new square list for me. And I'm going to probably add on to this as we go. That we'll have to like figure out like how to reset the game. This is what's going to happen when we call it. And so now we need to know when this triggered. And so let's make another region here. And this is going to be called lifecycle events. And basically, Blazor has lifecycle events. And this is when does things start, when do things get kicked off. And you've got to know these to make them work. All right. And one of these is on initialized async. And so we're going to use that for now. We're going to probably change this over to on after render, but because the reason is we're going to have to wait when the poster gets loaded. But for now, I think this will work. So when this loads, this will reset our game state. This method gets called, right? And then it'll run and load up our squares. And because this is a variable right here, in here, when this gets loaded up, I'm going to write a for loop here to create. I'm going to do it. And this is how two-way binding works. And but it is, as that changes, then it causes the UI to update, and you don't have to write anything to do that, which is kind of cool. All right, so this is the first part of like where we're programmatically or using code to build UI that we don't have. So in here, I'm going to write a bunch of divs in here, and it's going to have a column, and I'm going to give it an overlay block class. So we got poster overlay block, and that's pretty much all we want to do for now. We're going to come back and kind of work on this. This is going to get a little bit more involved in like how we modify this. So let me see if we can just get it on the page at this point. So let's go over to this and let's write a poster overlay class. Okay, and so we'll come down here in our poster section and we'll keep them all together. So we've got this poster image that we worked on. And so right underneath that, we're going to write a poster overlay. Make sure you put a dot in front of it. All right. And so this is going to be on top of this image, which is in turn in this container, right? So if we want this to be in this container on top of this image, it has to be positioned absolutely. We'll just keep that. That came in from it. It copied this one above it, Copilot. And yeah, nope, don't want that. Let's take all of this out. All right. That's the problem in Copilot. Sometimes it'll think you know what you want, but you don't really want that. So all we want is really just this element that's the same size as this one, and it's going to be layered over it. So to ensure that it's layered over it, we're going to hit the z-index of this, and we're going to set this thing to 3. And so this will make sure that this is on top of that. And because they're positionally absolutely, it'll lay over it. Okay. So I can put a tag in here. Ensure it is over the poster. We'll release this code. And so this is the magic of this thing. And then there's this magic of absolute positioning. That's about it. Okay. Now inside the poster overlay, we each have one of those blocks. And we're going to set the background color of this to mostly transparent. And we're not going to do semi-transparent. We're going to do mostly transparent. Again, Copilot is wrong, Kevin.
What a surprise.
Yeah. So like, you know, mostly opaque. It's completely wrong. All right. All right. So this is the background. This is because we're going to use a blur for this. And it's because we're using backdrop filter. And you may not have ever seen this before, but it's kind of cool. Geez. Okay, backdrop filter, web light. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Copilot again. I swear it didn't have that in there. It had something else, but that's okay. All right, we're going to blur this out at 30 pixels. We're also going to set the brightness level down. And we're going to set it down to 70%. So it's going to make it a little bit darker. And the same thing here on this backdrop here. Oh, it's blur, not blue. And WebKit is for other browsers, namely Safari. And I can't remember if blur and backdrop filters are supported natively in Safari, so I end up doing this. And we have seen blurs not work sometimes. So, but this is mostly supported. You should be okay. All right. Now, what I can do here is I can set something called a transition. So when this turns on and off, I want it to fade up. So we're going to transition on the opacity. Now, when we first do this, nothing's going to happen, but it's going to be a 1 second fade. Ease in and out. All right. So we're going to work on the opacity. And we're going to give this a border style so that you can see these grids on the page so you know which squares you're working with. And we're also going to make it 1's fine. And then we're going to make it white. I don't like the suggestion there. There you go. All right, so now we have an overlay block. We have a poster overlay, and then we have some code that's going to loop over this and add it in there. So what should happen is it should obscure a poster. That's what we're hoping. Let's see. Look at that. What do you think?
It's good.
Kinda
Indiana
cool.
Jones.
Indiana Jones,
Sorry,
right. So this is exactly what we tried to get when we were vibe coding this before. That's what I had in my mind, you know. And so basically, as you understand it, these are just 2 layers on top of that, you know, on top of that image, basically. Because the poster container is the layer, the background, and then there's the poster, and then there's the blur on top of it. Now, if you want to play with it, you know, you can. Let me see if I can get that back up there and we can play with it maybe. You know, you can come in here and play with this. You know, you can hit 50, blur it more. It's not going to change it. All right, well, that's okay. I think 30 works, you know. And I know that I'm just changing backtrap and filter because WebKit's I'm not running Safari, so it's not going to, I'm not worried about that right now. But you could blur it even more, but then it just becomes where there's no hint at all. It's just kind of a color thing. So I think 30 gives you something, but not everything. So I think that works. Okay. So now we're going to this transition. We're going to ease in and out of here. So we need a way to change this. Okay. And on our poster image, we need to do the same kind of thing. All right. So we'll work on that later because we're going to actually work on like a loader screen. We'll do that later. But right now, let's just work on like changing this opacity and seeing which block we can turn off to see if we can do that. All right. So let's go back to our code and let's see what other trouble we can get into. And we'll get there. Okay. So I'm going to write some base things here. I'm going to call a class that I'm going to call fade out. This is a common CSS thing that people do. And when it has fade out on, its opacity is 0, whatever it is. And then when it's fade in, its opacity is 1. And so if we make a change to this block here in the opacity and say we change it from 0 to 1, that change will take 1 second to happen. And so what we're going to do is take these classes and write them on or off. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Kind of cool. So either have a fade out class on it or have a fade in class on it. And then that'll set the opacity, which will cause this transition to happen. So when it changes, it'll fade out to 0. And it would take 1 second. If we changed it to 1, it would change it to fade in. So it's kind of how it works. So it's a lot of people are confused on transitions, but it's really, this is the transition. And then you just change that property and this tells how long it'll take. And this says, how do you want me to do it? And this just makes it smooth. It smooths it. It's not like a linear transition. It's kind of a ramp. So, all right. So let's make a change here. Let's see if we can find a random square out here. That'd be kind of cool, right? And then we'll turn it off. So I think the randomness will be kind of hard, but we can get there. I think we can get there. I think we can. All right. So let's go to our code here and let's write another method in GameFlow here. And we're going to write one called private async task. And we'll say show random square. So our default state is cover everybody. And we're going to show a random square. Okay. So we're going to make a random number here. And this is built into .NET. So we're going to say new random. And this works pretty well. I will say that if we make this static, it'd be actually more random than in here. But I think if you run into problems, we can move this outside this method and just have one static random thing. But I think it'd be fine. So we have a list of squares. And this is why we put them in a list, because we need to pick a random one out. And again, why can't I spell square? I don't know what the deal is there. I can't do it, Kevin. It's impossible.
You get.
All right. Yeah, I can see it, but I can't type it. And it's this. Here we go. All right. So this is a squares. And so we have this list of squares. All right. These are the hidden ones. And what I want is, I'm going to look at the square list that I currently have. The one I just made in the previous thing. And I'm going to only select the ones that are hidden. Because eventually we're going to reveal more than one. And this is link. And so I can pass in the list in here like this. Change it to S. Make this bigger so we can see what's going on. And then I can filter this object right here. So this has a list of squares right here. Okay. And by default, they're going to be set to false. Okay. So when we're setting them up here, I should set this to false probably by default. Yeah. So this is going to be false. Let me get back to my method here. All right. So now what I can do is I can look for just the ones that are false, which is a pretty easy filter, and it'll filter it and give me a new variable of hidden squares, the ones that are left. So show equals false. So just give me the ones and give me a list of them. So this worked on this object that we created right here. Cool. All right. And then we'll say if hidden squares dot count means we found some of them that are still hidden, because we don't want to try to access any of these. If there's nothing there, we get a null object reference. So we want to pick a random square. All right. And since this is an array or a list, these have indexes. And so I want to get a random index equals random. We'll use the random number. Next, give me the next random number. And from what to what? Well, we can say from the beginning of time to our count here. So I'm going to say hidden squares.count. What this will do, if this has 12 in it, for example, the first time it comes through at 12, this will give me a random number with 12, from 12 items, from 1 to 12. All right. And then we'll say hidden squares index. So now we look inside the hidden squares index, dot show equals true. All right. Now here's what's interesting. Setting this variable here will impact this square list right here. All right. So we can show random page. And so we can, in our initialization, we can reset our game state right here, and we could call show random square right after that. One thing we could do. For now, we will. What we can do. All right, so we're going to put it right here on initialize here, and let's just see if it works. We'll just do show random square here for now. We could put it in the reset game state, and we might, but I just want to see if it works. And we'll say await. And we'll see if it works. Save all. Let's see if it says it did it. Stop it and start it. I couldn't tell if it changed. Okay, so it did run right here, so we can step into this and see. It's not doing anything. All right. Oh. So what I want to do now is I forgot. These are just, we need to conditionally turn this to on or off. So got to do that. So when this changes, this square list changes, this will get re-executed and it'll loop back over this when we run that show random square. And what we can do is we can investigate the value of its show property reach square. So show square, S-Q-U-A-R-E dot show. No. I'll explain this in a second. So like this is, we're going to conditionally add in a class to this thing, and our class is going to be fade out. All right, so we'll say if this show, if it's true, add in fade out, else don't do anything. And this is running C# in here, and this is one of the primary patterns that you can do is write in these conditional changes inside of the class statement here. So this, when this runs through, it'll check it and it'll run the fade out. If it runs the fade out, it sets the opacity level, which triggers the transition on this overlay block. So let's see if it makes that change. All right, let's see if it works. Look at that. All right, so if I refresh this page, you can see it's making a random square.
Indiana Jones.
Yep.
I know this one. I'm good at this.
So it's making a random page for us. So that's kind of the basis of our game. And you can see here, even when we get bigger, it's changing with it because of the absolute positioning. Kind of cool. All right. So you can see it's kind of random. It's all over the place. So now what we want to do is we have a show random square, and now we want to trigger this button to reveal our second image. So we got our starting condition right now, so that works. And now I want to do is type in something, and that's kind of where we'll leave it today. We'll type in and see if we can reveal this poster with 11 clicks. All right. So I'm going to stop this. It's got a little bit of code to write. So now what we can do is look at the form. And so the form, this is the game board controller. Now let's come back over here and look at our controls container. And we've got this button, or this button right here. We want this button to trigger a method down in our code. That's pretty easy to do. So, and it's super powerful. I think it is anyway. And all we have to do is trigger on submit here. So I'm going to say on right here, valid submit. And I'm going to call a method called handle submit. You'll see a pattern here we do at Cutter Foundry is when we write handlers, we call them handle and then what's it doing. And so we're submitting this form so we can handle submit. You could put the form in here if you want, but there's only one form on this page currently. So then I have to write a method that does it. And now because this button is typed submit right here, it'll trigger this thing here if it's valid. All right, so we need to write a method for handle submit here. And it's got to be named the same as it was before that we just typed in up there. So it's pretty simple. But notice everything's running in async here, which is great. So we don't ever lock the UI when we're doing these things. Handle submit. Right, and so now if you go up here, this should turn yellow now, and it does. And now it knows that it's there. See, it found it. Okay, so that's all we have to do to wire this button up. If we hit submit on this button, it's going to call this method if the page is valid, if the form is valid. Okay. So what we want to do now is when we run it, we're going to call await show random square for now. That's all it's going to do. We're going to make this guess more when we get there, but I think for now, if we can just make it show the random squares, I think we're good. Okay, so it came in, we've got a square here. So I'm going to type in a name. Now we're not checking to see the name is, so it doesn't matter what we type in. We have to type in something. All right, let's make sure that we have the right value there. It blew up on us. That's okay. I don't know why I did that. So we got handle submit here. Oh, we need a render mode here because it's not. Sorry about that. So we have to put this in a render mode, and because it thinks it's running on the server, and when we do that, we have to do it differently. But this is an interactive page, so we're going to render mode interactive server for now. That should fix our page. All right, so now we're getting into interactivity, so that should fix our page for now. And eventually we'll talk more about this in the next session about what these render modes are and how they work. But So now we can say title. And you see now it faded it in and out. Made another one in and out. What do you think, Kevin?
It's getting there. I like it. At this point, we just reveal them all, won't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's no check yet. And if I refresh the page, it'll reset the game. And I'll put a title in here. But notice here, if I hit this validation triggers, so which is cool. It's just built in for free for us. So, Raiders. All right. I think at this point, that's a good spot to stop at. We've got our base UI put together here. Pretty cool. You know, we've been here for several hours, so
where do we start next time? What's the next thing to add in there? What are the next sort of things?
So the next step, I think, is calling the back end to be able to like bring in a random poster, and so then we can reveal the random poster that's coming in.
Okay.
With the same mechanism, and then we'll build a type of head control so we can actually get movie titles in here. That then we can check to see the random poster's title versus what we entered in. That's kind of the next kind of step. But next thing, we'll work on a back end for this to get it working. And then that means we also have to build a loader scenario where it may take a second. So we show something, a placeholder, before this is done.
Okay. So we don't like cheat, so we don't see it first.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it totally works. And you can see it is random. I mean, it's just really cool. So there's that one.
Definitely seems to come in different orders. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the transition's smooth as silk. That's all CSS doing that. It's kind of cool. Now notice too, I didn't write any JavaScript. This is what's cool about Blazor. We don't have to write JavaScript to do that kind of stuff. I don't have to wire up these elements. And it shouldn't be lost on the crowd here, if you're still watching, that if I go back up to, where is my code to this? Right here. Where is it? Where's my squares? Oh, game container, game board. All right. That because that I modified that square, this gets re-executed and it just changes. I mean, otherwise you'd have to do get element by ID, find the brick, you know, hit the, you know, do something like class list.add with JavaScript to add in here. But just because I'm changing this code executes and it automatically updates the UI. I didn't have to do that. And that's what's really brilliant about .NET, Blazor. It makes it simple to build these UIs. Now, I know we were here for hours, but there's a lot of work in here. Building all these CSS. So, okay. That's all I got, Kevin. What do you think?
World Ventures like your project anyway. So they're such a cool project, and they're in Rwanda, so that's cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, cool. We're in a good stopping spot. So yeah, we'll be back again. What we're gonna do is next Friday again.
Next Friday, we'll get more into Blazor, more into C#. We'll actually write controllers to be able to call the endpoints. So to get more back end next time instead of just purely front end. But like I've said before, here at Coder Foundry, man, we believe that any app you build should look good. If it doesn't look good, it reflects poorly upon you. And it's really a cop out to say, well, you know, I'm not concerned about the back end. I'm just concerned about the code, you know, like that. You know, well, the front end is the code too, you know. So
we hear both ways of that, don't we? We hear both ends. We like people who only matter. It's like, it's just got to look good. No, it's got to work too. It's got to do something. It's got to be interesting. And then we just hear people are like, well, the front end doesn't matter. Like, it's just about, they just got to work. Like, no. It's got to be both. To get a job, we think it's got to be both.
Yeah, you got to get both.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be back next week, and we'll continue Obscura. And then this week, my job is to troubleshoot why the page background didn't work. And I'll tell you,
yeah. So next video, next week, we'll have an answer for that.
I'll have an answer for it. So, all right. We'll see you next week, guys.
Catch you later. Bye.